Welcome to Picture Mavericks. So I need to tell you about Forrest Gump, and this movie is special in a way that is hard to put into words. It will make you laugh, it will make you cry, and it will remind you what it means to be a good person in a complicated world. So let me walk you through this incredible story. The movie starts with Forrest sitting on a bench at a bus stop telling his life story to strangers, and right away we learn that Forrest has an IQ of 75, which means he is not considered smart by society's standards. But as his mama always told him, stupid is as stupid does, which means intelligence is not about test scores. It is about how you treat people and the choices you make. Forrest grows up in Alabama in the 1950s and 60s with his mama, who loves him completely and never lets him feel different or less than anyone else. She fights to get him into regular school instead of a special school. She teaches him that he is no different from anybody else, and she raises him with this beautiful, simple wisdom about life that guides him through everything. When Forrest is young, he has to wear leg braces because his back is crooked, and kids bully him constantly. But then he meets Jenny, who is the first person besides his mama to show him kindness. Jenny becomes his best friend and the love of his life, even though she does not realize it yet. And one day, when bullies are chasing Forrest on their bikes, Jenny tells him to run, and Forrest runs so fast that his leg braces break off, and he discovers he can run like the wind. This running ability changes his life. He gets recruited to play football in high school, then college, and he becomes a football star at the University of Alabama, where he even meets President Kennedy. After college, Forrest joins the Army, and this is where he meets Bubba, who becomes his best friend. Bubba is obsessed with shrimp. He knows everything about shrimp, and he has this dream of becoming a shrimp boat captain after the war. Bubba and Forrest make a promise to each other that after Vietnam, they will go into the shrimping business together. And Forrest takes this promise seriously because that is who Forrest is. He keeps his word. In Vietnam, Forrest also meets Lieutenant Dan, who is a career military man from a family with a long tradition of dying in combat. And Lieutenant Dan fully expects, and even wants to die honorably in battle. During a brutal ambush, their platoon gets attacked, and Forrest keeps running back into the jungle to save his fellow soldiers. He saves several men, including Lieutenant Dan, but Bubba gets shot and dies in Forrest's arms after asking Forrest to go into the shrimping business like they planned. Forrest is devastated by Bubba's death, and Lieutenant Dan is furious that Forrest saved him because Dan's legs had to be amputated, and now he cannot die the honorable death he wanted. He feels like Forrest ruined his destiny and took away his purpose. Lieutenant Dan becomes bitter and angry. He feels like his life is over because he cannot serve in the military anymore. But Forrest does not give up on his promises. He gets awarded the Medal of Honor for his heroism in Vietnam. And then he keeps his promise to Bubba by using his medal ceremony appearance to advocate for better treatment of veterans. Though he does not realize the political impact of what he is saying, he is just being honest. Forrest also discovers he is good at ping pong while recovering from his injury, and he becomes so good that he gets to play in China as part of a diplomatic ping pong team. And this is historically accurate. Ping pong diplomacy was a real thing that helped improve U.S.-China relations. After the military, Forrest keeps his promise to Bubba and buys a shrimp boat, and he finds Lieutenant Dan, who has become an alcoholic living on the streets, and Forrest asks Dan to be his first mate on the shrimp boat. Lieutenant Dan is skeptical and still angry, but he agrees. And at first, the shrimping business is a disaster. They catch nothing. Dan mocks Forrest constantly, and it seems hopeless. Then a hurricane destroys all the other shrimp boats in the area, but Forrest's boat survives because they were out at sea. And suddenly, they have a monopoly on the shrimping business, and they become incredibly wealthy. Lieutenant Dan invests their money in some fruit company, which we later learn is Apple Computers, and Forrest becomes a millionaire without even trying. During all of this, Forrest keeps thinking about Jenny. Throughout the years, Jenny has been searching for something, trying to escape her painful childhood where her father abused her, and she goes down a dark path. She gets involved with the counterculture movement. She does drugs. She gets into abusive relationships. She poses nude for magazines. And every time Forrest tries to protect her or help her, she pushes him away because she does not feel worthy of his pure love. One night, Jenny comes to visit Forrest at his house, and they spend time together, and Forrest tells her he loves her and asks her to marry him. But Jenny says no because she thinks Forrest does not understand what love means, even though the truth is that Forrest understands love better than anyone. He loves unconditionally, without wanting anything in return. That night, Jenny and Forrest sleep together, and then in the morning she leaves without saying goodbye, and Forrest is heartbroken. In his sadness, Forrest starts running, and he just keeps running across the country, back and forth, for over 3 years. People think he is running for some cause or some political reason, and they start following him, creating this whole movement. But Forrest is just running because he does not know what else to do with his pain. Then one day he stops in the middle of the road and says he is tired and he wants to go home, and everyone who was following him is confused because they thought he was leading them somewhere. But Forrest was never trying to lead anyone. He was just dealing with his grief. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Dan has found peace. He has made his peace with God during a storm on the shrimp boat. He got prosthetic legs, he got engaged, and he thanks Forrest for saving his life because now he understands that his life had a different purpose than dying in combat. Then Forrest gets a letter from Jenny asking him to visit her. And when he goes to see her, she introduces him to a little boy. And Forrest asks if the boy is smart or if he is like him. And Jenny says the boy is very smart. And then she tells Forrest that the boy is his son. His name is Forrest Jr. Forrest is overwhelmed with joy. He has a son, and his son is smart and healthy. And then Jenny tells him she has been sick with a virus, and we understand that she has AIDS, which was devastating and often fatal in the 1980s. Jenny finally agrees to marry Forrest, and they have a beautiful small wedding, and Forrest takes care of her until she passes away. The movie comes full circle to Forrest sitting at the bus stop telling his story, and we realize he has been waiting for the bus to go see his son at school because it is little Forrest's first day, and Forrest is nervous about whether his son will be okay. He walks little Forrest to the bus and watches him get on. And as the bus drives away, a feather floats down from little Forrest's book, the same feather we saw at the beginning of the movie floating through the air, and it drifts away on the wind. So what does Forrest Gump teach us? This movie is packed with lessons about life, love, kindness, and what really matters. First, intelligence is not the same as wisdom. Forrest has a low IQ, but he understands life better than most people because he is not overthinking everything. He is not cynical. He is not trying to manipulate situations for his benefit. He treats people with kindness. He keeps his promises. He loves unconditionally. And those qualities are more valuable than any test score. This teaches us that our society's definition of smart is too narrow. Wisdom and goodness matter more than intellectual intelligence. Second, simplicity can be a strength. Forrest's simple approach to life means he is not paralyzed by doubt or fear. When he decides to do something, he just does it. He promises Bubba he will buy a shrimp boat, so he buys a shrimp boat. He loves Jenny, so he loves her completely without games or conditions. This teaches us that sometimes we overcomplicate things. Sometimes the direct, honest approach is the best approach. Third, loyalty is everything. Forrest never gave up on Lieutenant Dan, even when Dan was cruel to him. He never gave up on Jenny even when she pushed him away. He never forgot his promise to Bubba even after Bubba died. This shows us that real loyalty means staying committed even when it is hard, even when people do not deserve it, even when you do not get anything in return. Fourth, you cannot force people to accept love or help. Jenny kept running from Forrest because she did not feel worthy of his love. She had been so damaged by her childhood abuse that she could not accept pure, unconditional love. Forrest could not fix that for her. He could only love her and wait for her to heal enough to let him in. This teaches us that we cannot save people who are not ready to be saved. We can only offer our love and support and let them come to us when they are ready. Fifth, life is unpredictable, and that is okay. Forrest's mama says life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you are going to get, and Forrest's life proves this. He becomes a football star, a war hero, a ping-pong champion, a shrimp boat captain, a millionaire, and none of it was planned. This teaches us to embrace uncertainty rather than fear it, to be open to opportunities rather than rigidly controlling everything. Sixth, the past shapes us but does not have to define us. Lieutenant Dan was defined by his family's military tradition, and when he lost his legs, he thought his life was over. But through Forrest's friendship, he discovered a new identity and a new purpose. This shows us that we can reinvent ourselves. We can find new meaning when our old identity is taken away. Seventh, sometimes the best thing you can do is just show up. Forrest did not have profound advice or complex solutions. He just showed up for people. He was present. He was reliable. He was there. When Lieutenant Dan was bitter and drunk, Forrest showed up. When Ginny needed someone, Forrest showed up. This teaches us that consistency and presence matter more than grand gestures. Eighth, grief and pain are part of life, and we have to move through them. When Forrest lost Ginny temporarily, he ran for 3 years, and that was his way of processing the pain. The movie does not say there is a right or wrong way to grieve. It just shows us that we need to feel our feelings, and eventually we will be ready to stop running and go home. Ninth, goodness does not always get rewarded, but it is still worth it. Forrest was good to everyone, but he still lost Bubba. He still watched Ginny suffer. He still lost his mama, and eventually Ginny died. Life was not fair to Forrest just because he was good, but his goodness gave his life meaning and helped the people around him, and that was enough. And finally, the feather represents fate versus choice. The feather floats randomly on the wind, but it also lands right at Forrest's feet at specific moments. And the movie asks us whether life is random or whether there is some kind of plan or purpose. Forrest himself says he thinks maybe it is both. Maybe we are all floating around like a feather, but maybe there is also something guiding us. And that ambiguity is beautiful because it means we can believe what we need to believe to make sense of our lives. Forrest Gump is not just a movie about a simple man who witnesses history. It is a movie about how kindness and loyalty and love can create a meaningful life even when the world is complicated and often cruel. It shows us that you do not need to be a genius to make a difference. You do not need to have it all figured out. You just need to be good to people and keep showing up. The reason this movie makes people cry is because Forrest represents the best version of humanity, the version that loves without conditions, that keeps promises, that sees the good in everyone. And in our cynical, complicated world, that kind of purity is rare and precious, and it reminds us of what we could be if we just stopped overthinking and started living with open hearts. This has been Picture Mavericks. Thanks for watching.